I am RanDee Camille, and this is Sports Society. Man, talking about life after sports, let me give you a little dibble dabble about my life after sports. Now, my dad was ingrained in sports. My mom, being the educator that she is, they worked hard to make sure I was prepared for life after. You a woman, you probably not gonna get no $500 million contract. You making good money now, but always prepare for what's next. And I did that. Got my degree at UNLV. I got my master's while I was playing professionally overseas. I worked in the summer so that I can gain experience, to have experience. And I did all of what was deemed as right. And when I stopped playing basketball, I made the decision. We won't talk about what decision I made, but I stopped playing basketball, and now it's time to go to work. I got to get a job. I'm applying. I'm going on interviews. I'm talking to people, and I'm getting, well, maybe you should get another degree. Well, I got two. How many more you want me to get? Well, you don't have enough experience. Well, I've done this, and this. Yeah, well, we need more experience. Well, what else have you done in that? So I'm in this fight. I'm in this back and forth about what to do next. And quite honestly, I tell people the first job I had working at Goodwill Industries for a women's program, I still had to interview, I still had to do the work, but essentially I was hired by my dad's friend. So when I hear people, and sometimes in our community, I hate to say it, it's like, no, you got to work for it, you got to fight for it, we just can't give you stuff. Man, help your people out. Help them out, give them a job, give them a chance, give them opportunity. But I digress. Well, now I have my first job. Leading up to this time, there have been referees I have been talking to about officiating basketball. And how I even got to that was, I wish I remember this lady's name to this day because where I am now with refereeing, but something was going on with the clock when I was playing at UNLV, and they're trying to figure it out, and I'm standing next to the referee waiting to inbound the ball. And she looks at me and she goes, "RanDee, you should referee. You need to join us. You should come with us." And I was like, I don't even know what y'all do. I kind of know y'all purpose, but why would I be a referee? She goes, "Why wouldn't you be a referee?" I said, "It's true." She goes, "We make good money." She said, "You'll be good at it. You're patient. You don't get worked up much. You stern, your height, and we need more former athletes to referee." I said, "Okay, well, how do you start refereeing?" She said, "Do you know any referees in your area?" I said, "Absolutely. I still play basketball with some of them. They've been around for a while, connected." She said, "Well, talk to them in your hometown. They'll help get you started. And if not, you could talk to referees here in Vegas and get it going." So I just kind of left it at that, like, oh, okay, whatever. And it was true. There were referees that I was still playing basketball with, or that I knew had been refereeing my high school games and became people I was cool with. And I started reaching out to them, and they started doing training with me just a little bit, but I was still playing professionally overseas. And at that particular time, Detroit basketball was the best. We were the city. We were it. St. Cecilia, the Detroit Public School League, which is known for the PSL, we had the teams, both girls and boys, killing. If you ever walked into the Saint, you liable to see Grant Hill, Lindsey Hunter, of course, Jalen Rose, Derek Dow. I mean, I could go on and on about these guys who showed up to the Saint and played. And I can remember watching those referees and saying, ain't no way, because they used to be on their head. All this stuff would happen, but it also didn't seem like the worst job ever. They started training me up, getting me going, and every year I can remember at the time, the guy who was running the PSL's name is Mike Smith. Every year he would say, "You done playing basketball? You gonna come ref? You done playing basketball? You done with that? Come join us." I said, "No, Mike, come on, give me another year. I still got it in me. I gotta play." He like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And finally, when I went back and said, "Okay, I'm done. How can y'all help me out?" And true to his word, Mike, Malcolm, they started giving me games. I started working JV basketball, middle school basketball, started getting some high school games. And for me, it was just fun. It was fun to be back on the court. It was fun to still be around the game. It helped to keep me in shape. Also got some extra dollars in my pocket. Because let me tell you something. When I got that first real job, my parents will tell you to this day, they laughed at me so hard because I got my first check and I was like, what is all of this out of my check? What is this out of my check? Because see, when you play overseas, you get your bread, ain't no taxes coming out. It's not nothing to do with the U.S., so it's not connected to the government in that sense. So you just got your money. I was like, this is crazy. So being able to referee made it awesome because I had that extra money as well that was put in my pocket, just doing something that I love. And ultimately, at the time, my dad was coaching at one of the junior colleges. And he said, well, why don't you referee junior college? And I was like, I don't know. How do you referee junior college? I don't know how they even get there. And he said, that's okay. We talked to the guy who assigned him. I'm going to call him and see what he says. So he called him, and he said, okay, well, I have these camps. I have this. I have that. This is how your daughter can get into it. So he comes back. He gives me the information. I call the guy, and after that, I was a junior college referee. So now, at the time when I started refereeing high school, a high school game was $55 a game. We done made it up to $75 here. Woo! We coming on up, but it was $55 a game. And I do my first junior college game, check is $135. And I'm like, oh, okay. We go from 55 to 135, not that much difference in the game. All right, nice. And then I talk to that same assigner and I say, well, how do people get into the other levels, right? Because obviously I played Division I basketball, so how are people getting into the NAIA, D3, D2? And he goes, same thing. There's camps, there's this, there's that. And he's like, nobody told you this? And I'm like, no. And so that's another story why I didn't know, but then I started asking questions and talking to people, and then I started attending those camps. And next thing you know, I'm working NAIA, I'm working D3. Okay, like things are really starting to roll. And I remember having a conversation. There's an official, her name is Michelle, and Michelle used to officiate my games when I was at the University of Detroit. And the favorite story I love to tell about Michelle, the point guard I had at the time, her name was Michelle, and me and her are like this. And so Michelle would come to the circle and she'd be like, RanDee, you gonna handle your Michelle today? Because I don't want nothing out of her. My point guard, I love her to death, but she was feisty. So she'd be like, you gonna handle your Michelle today? Because I don't want to go back and forth. And I'm like, no, we gonna be good. And I started talking to her, and she's like, this is where you go for those Division I camps and this and that. And when I started getting to know, I said, well, what do they pay at the Division I level? What do you get? And everybody kept saying, well, it's commas in those checks. It's commas in those checks. And I'm like, now give me a number, because I can make that up in my head what it's supposed to be. Okay, well, lower level, it's like $1,200, $1,300. And I said, for the week or the month? Like, no, for the game. I said, so you're telling me I can go referee one basketball game and make $1,200? They're like, yeah, it's Division I. So that's when I had settled within myself that we need to take this a little bit more serious. And it's so much that goes into it that I would never know. I always joke and I tell people, I used to laugh at the referees because they would be stretching, warming up, getting ready for the game. And we used to be like, what they doing? They not about to do nothing. They just got to kind of go up and down. And I didn't know the extensive learning and education that goes into it. Being a basketball player, you just don't know the rules. You know the basics. You have basketball smarts, you know what's up. But there are so much intricate details that's associated with the game. And now as a referee, I need to know all that. I need to know if a fight happens, how do we eject people? How do we disseminate the free throws? How do we go through all of this? What can coaches do and not do? What should the uniforms look like? What is deemed a foul? So you would think, okay, you get hit, that's a foul. Well, no. We start talking about speed and rhythm and balance. Did they knock them off? Were they strong? And the more I started getting into it, I got really excited about being able to learn the game from a different way. And I started finding a different passion because, like most former athletes, I had found myself in a bout of depression, not being able to play the game no more. I didn't want to watch the game. I didn't want to go to games. I didn't want to be around nothing because I couldn't play. I wanted to play, and that was it. And it wasn't a depression that had me sad and crying and not wanting to live life or anything like that, but I really had detached myself from the game completely, something that I love so much, simply because I had it wrapped in my mind, if I can't play, then just leave it alone. And refereeing rebought the game back to me. It rediscovered a level of love that I have for the game all over again in a different aspect. And it's even more fun because I sit in the spaces where now my friends are coaching. They have kids that are playing. I literally watch kids go from being little elementary ballers to being in college. And I'm on a college game on the road, and their parents are at the game, and they're like, "Aren't you the ref from Detroit?" Like, I am. Like, what's up? Like, what's going on? And it's amazing to be able to sit in this space. It's amazing to be able to say that so many years later, I am still in the game to this capacity. I had no desire to coach. It wasn't something that was intriguing to me or that I wanted to do. So I knew that wasn't something I was going to jump into. But I never thought in a million years I would fall in love with the refereeing side of it. And oftentimes people ask me, well, isn't refereeing hard? And do you like it? And they be yelling at you and all this stuff. The competitive nature in me enjoys some of that, if it's weird or interesting to say. It doesn't bother me. I know when I make mistakes in the game, and meaning, maybe I called that foul too quick, or maybe I did miss a foul. If a player gives me a little, like, come on, ref, like, what's up? I can't even get mad at him or her because I get it. Like, yeah, I messed up. You're right. As long as you don't get ignorant, we can sit in a good space. Coaches, dealing with coaches, knowing how to have that conversation, because coaches will try your knowledge and what you know. And I have no problem letting them know, hey, I played the game. I know the difference between, oh, that was extra and that was a basketball play. Don't do me like that. And they're always like, okay, RanDee, all right, well, this is what we have. And I've made a new level set of friends within that as well. And I never thought in a million years officiating would be the way, but now I encourage athletes so much to come back because personally, this is my personal opinion, I think if you played, you're better at it. So that's why I really want athletes to come on over to the officiating world.
Okay, let's talk about why you feel most former athletes don't get into refereeing. Because it seemed like it would be a natural pathway, right? Once I'm done playing my sport, I'm going to go referee that sport, like you said, to continue to be into it. Why do you think that at most former athletes don't referee?
I think that there is some negative attachment to officiating, meaning people tend to look at the referees as the bad guy or woman. And that's because when you're a referee, 50% of the time you wrong to somebody, right? I can make the best call of the night. It's no question, but who I make it against, somebody's going, that's terrible, ref. That was the wrong call. You don't know what you're doing. And when you are going through that as a player, you start to think, well, I don't want to get yelled at. I don't want the spotlight back on me. I don't want people to be on me about this and that. And I'm always encouraging athletes to say, listen, it's not all like that. It's not as bad as you like to think it is. And also, we have tools to get rid of people that don't know how to act right. So it's not that realm. But I also think that there's not a lot of knowledge attached to it. And when you don't have the knowledge, it's a scary space to sit in that you have to learn something completely new. It's a little bit easier to me to transition from player to coach, because as a player, you had to run plays, you had to do sets, you had to go to practice, you had to do all these different things. Now as a coach, it's different because now you have to watch the film, you have to generate the plays, you have to come up with the structure, but at least it still falls within that mindset of a player. It's different because now you have to become a teacher. Well, now as an official, you have to become an enforcer. And that stands different in people's mind going from teaching to enforcing. Because I get a lot. Come on, RanDee, you won like that call as a player. And I'll say, you are absolutely correct. But guess what? The rules have changed. And I'll use for an example. When I was playing, somebody cut through the lane, you were allowed to bump the cutter or chuck the cutter. It was regular. So that little bitty guard come running through the lane, I'm knocking her all the way out of bounds. That's not a foul. We good. Play on. That's how we were taught. In today's basketball, in today's college basketball, that's a foul. So when you send that girl to the baseline, I got to call it. So that's one of those things. Come on, RanDee, when you was playing, you were right. When I was playing, that was legal. But in today's rules, that's illegal, and it's a foul. And so it sets you in a different mindset of having to be an enforcer. And I even think about some of the stuff, and I say, man, if I was playing today, I would probably foul out quick. I probably would have this situation, that, and that. But it's the way the game goes. And I often hear people talk about, man, I'm from Detroit, so we love the bad boys. We love the Pistons, right? And at that time, it was knock you on your head. I don't even know what a foul was in that era, because you could be laid out, and it was just regular. You weren't going to get ejected, nothing. They changed the game. They changed the rules. They changed how officials are to officiate the game. And essentially, I always let people know, because that's their debate. The NBA is soft now. They can't do this. They can't do that. And back in the day, and you could. And I say, yeah, but when did Isaiah have to retire? When did Jordan have to retire? Magic's not the best example, but when did these players have to retire? Way earlier than the players today. Why? Because they was getting up in the game. Grant Hill's foot was getting ate up. His Achilles was getting ate up, and they like, are you going to come play today, or what you going to do? And I just like to think, if some of those things were a little bit different, how much longer an Isaiah Thomas could have played, and the impact he would have had on the league and the things that were happening, versus he had to end his career because he could barely walk and talk because he is getting messed up in the game. You have the anomalies, which is a Dennis Rodman who could go. He could take it. He could give it. It didn't matter. And that all ties back into the officiating. It ties into the rules. It ties into where it all goes. But ultimately, it's still being true to the game. It's still being a part of the game. And to be in this space when I do talk junk to people, and when I, am feeling myself, I'm like, yeah, but I've been getting paid to be on this court for like 20-some years. So say something less. You done spent your $5 to come talk some mess to me, so have at it. Good luck. But that's my journey through refereeing. I feel blessed and honored to be able to officiate at the Division I level, to be officiating at the level that I played. I inspire to keep growing and be great within that space. But many don't get the opportunity to sit and enjoy and still love the game. And it brings me so much happiness to have my heart filled back with basketball and sports, because ultimately it's who I am and it's what I love. And that's why we're here. If you are interested in getting into refereeing, I would either A, talk to some officials. So if you are playing the sport, or if you go to a game, a high school, middle school game, whatever, talk to the official. You can also Google what is your local high school associations. For instance, it's the Michigan High School Athletic Association is ours here in Michigan. And believe it or not, at the middle school and high school level, it's simple to go register, and you go take a test, and then you're certified to officiate. Now, that's not going to get you any games. That's not going to get you on the court. You still got to make the connection with the right people. You have to find the assigners, because there are always assigners for each of the leagues who will be able to put you on the floor. Typically, and every state, there's some form of training that happens in the summer that will teach you the mechanics, teach you the rules, teach you the rotations. And so it's about being linked in with those people. But you can just go and register online and become an official. But what I would encourage is getting linked with any referee that you see and say, hey, can you just point me in the direction? I'm interested. And they'll guide you where you need to go. As always, I always appreciate you all tuning in. And I always just want you to trust. And what I have to say for anything is trust the process. The process is not easy. The process isn't always fun. But if you trust it, believe it, and work at it, you're going to succeed at it. I'm RanDee Camille, and this is Sports Society.